Okay, so when we first introduced this project, I mentioned that our eventual goal is to have the form operate in two modes, a login mode and a registration mode. And eventually we're going to accomplish that with a switch or a toggle at the very top of the form that the user will click to get the form into the alternate mode. But for now, the simplest solution that I could come up with to start building out a similar functionality is simply adding two buttons at the very top of the form. One of the buttons will take the form into login mode, and the other button will take the form into the registration mode. And then as we develop this component and it evolves over time, then we'll add the eventual switch component in just a little bit. But for now, I want to focus more on learning the key concepts of state in React, and this will be enough to allow us to progress. So in this lesson, we're going to do a bit more styling using Tailwind CSS. So right here, directly above my H1, but within this second div, I'm going to add another div right here, and I'm immediately going to give it a couple classes. So I'm going to add a class name, and we're going to begin by making it a flex box with flex. Then we're going to arrange the children in a row direction using flex row. And then I'm going to use a special class called gap-x-2. The gap property, or the column gap property to be more specific, actually creates automatic spacing or margin between the flex children. And that allows us to not have to specify any manual margin on our flex children. And the X simply means on the X axis, so left and right. The Tailwind and the CSS more specifically will apply margin spacing on the X axis between subsequent flex children within this container. All right. And then the final thing I want to add here is a little bit of margin to separate this div from the H1 below it. So I'm going to add an MB6 class right here. MB is short for margin bottom. Okay, then within this div, I want to create two buttons. I'm going to start with my first one right here, and this button will hold the text login. So there we go. We can start to see this unstyled button right here. Of course, we can make it more pretty with a whole bunch of Tailwind classes. So let's do that right now. I'm going to give this button a height with the H10 class. That's going to be 40 pixels of height. I'm going to give it a width of 50% with the W-1/2 class. It's kind of a weird syntax, but that is a valid Tailwind class that's going to apply a width of 50%. I'm going to make the button rounded with the rounded class. I'm going to give it a thick border with border 2. And then I'm going to make the border solid with border-solid. And I'm going to specify the border color with border-blue-500, like so. And then finally, the last thing I want to do is to give the button a background color, but only on hover. I want to give it a blue background color. And as a reminder, the way we specify a CSS class to apply on hover is we write the hover keyword, followed by a colon, and then the CSS class that we want to apply. In this case, on hover, I want to apply bg-blue-100, save that, and when I hover my mouse over this button, you can see it turns that nice blue background color. Cool, so that's going to be the login button. We can see it occupies half of our flex box right here. So I want to make a complementary button right next to it. So I'm going to copy and paste this code right here. I'm going to change this text immediately to sign up, and I'm going to make our second button look just a little bit different. So right here, I'm going to give it a green border instead. So I'm going to add border green 500 as my border color right here. And on hover, I'm going to apply BG green 100 as well. So now we just have a little bit of a different color scheme for both of these buttons. Not really relevant to our end goal, but just gives it a little kind of playful look and feel. All right, so we have these two buttons, and we're going to start wiring them up with click handlers in the very next lesson. So I'll see you there.